Daryl Dixon's arrival to France sets off a violent chain of events that inadvertently puts a young boy at the heart of a growing religious movement in danger. Daryl agrees to help shepherd the boy to safety in exchange for help returning to America. You're with the Daryl Dixon Podcast. Up the background instead of the opener. So I'll edit that out. Don't worry. Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
What is up? Hey, Dawn.
Hello, Kelly.
Good to have
Here
you
we are. Yeah,
Yes.
This is short notice decision, but I'm here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Welcome, everybody. If you're familiar with the channel already, welcome back. Everyone, this is a welcome to everybody for the Daryl Dixon Podcast, since this is our first episode. I'm Kelly. I am the founder of Cyborg Queen Media, which started with the Antler Queens podcast, a Yellow Jackets podcast. And I quickly became obsessed with podcasting and couldn't stop. And started Cruel Summer Camp, which is a podcast covering the show Cruel Summer with my partner Pamela and my podcast partner Pamela. And this is actually, we've got two other podcasts getting ready to debut. A Wentworth podcast called H Block Queens and a Reddit podcast called A-Hole Queens. And but I'm really excited to bring you guys the Daryl Dixon Podcast. And I'm here with my co-host Dawn. And Dawn, why don't you tell everyone a little about yourself?
Yeah, I like you, I started podcasting and went, hey, this is good fun. I just get to talk all the time. I started podcasting 2 years ago with my own podcast, The Shipyard, with my co-host Lucy, which is dedicated to shipping TV shows with slow burn relationships. I then joined the Custard TV podcast, which is a television review podcast. And during this whole thing, I have been a lifelong fandom person, shipper and fandom in general, and been watching The Walking Dead since it was first on in the UK. As you can tell, I'm not from America. I am Scottish. And yeah, when it first aired in the UK, I was watching it from the beginning and completely devoted to it. Joined the fandom before season 3, and it's basically been my life since. It's taken over my life for the past 12-ish years. So I'm delighted to be able to talk about it, and not to my husband who's fed up of hearing about it.
Yes, I have that same problem. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been as obsessed with The Walking Dead as long as you, but almost as long.
Mm-hmm.
I started in 2013. And it was my life because I discovered it when I was shortly after I was in a really bad car accident and was basically in a hospital bed. So for months. So like all I had to do, like while I was waiting for my husband to take care of me, was watch TV, and I became obsessed with The Walking Dead. Like I had never been obsessed with anything before.
Wow.
And so that was 2013. Just before season 4 started.
Oh, good time. Good time to get on board it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I binged the first 3 seasons in 2 weeks. And I have since another show this was my favorite show of all time until about a year and a half ago when Yellow Jackets kind of took over that spot. But it's still, I mean, I've been in this fandom for so long and obsessing over it for so long. And I've been to the conventions and, I'm at the cast. And it's just like, it's so cool that I'm finally getting to podcast about it now.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the fandom since the end of season 3. So about the same time as when you came into it. And at the start of season 4, I did record just a couple of shorts myself on YouTube, just ranting because I needed somebody to listen to me talk about The Walking Dead. Because
I love that.
while I love it as a show, that my thing with shows is when I love a show, it doesn't necessarily mean I think it's perfect. I certainly don't, and so I always have something to say. I'm like, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't they do that? So, so yeah, the Walking Dead really gives you a lot that you can talk about, So it's an ideal show for podcasts, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, my favorite Walking Dead podcast for years was Watching Dead, which which basically all they did was rip on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to the fans to do it. You don't want outsiders to do it. It's fans that get to rip on it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, I mean, in with some of these seasons that we got, like season 7 and 8, that was the only way we could survive.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. If you have a spare hour, listen to me talk about season 6. That's I have a lot to say there.
I hear you. And season 11 was pretty tough to get through.
Not
gonna lie.
That
was kind of agonizing. But yeah, I we'll share a little bit of honesty here. You and I share something in common, which is that I don't think either one of us planned to watch this show originally.
Correct. And yes, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we're both huge fans of Carol.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't planning on watching any of the spinoffs, honestly, except for when there was originally the Daryl and Carol spinoff planned, because I will watch anything with Carol or Melissa McBride in it. So once she was no longer in it, I was like, okay, well, that's one less show I have to watch. But I actually liked this a lot. And we're gonna have a spoiler section at the end of the show. We'll give you a warning for anybody who doesn't want to be spoiled on stuff. We may discuss rumors that we heard, or we may discuss stuff that we actually know about. Nothing exclusive. We're not gonna we're not going to be your spoiler source, your exclusive spoiler source. We're not going to reveal any sensitive information that we might find out. It's basically anything that you hear on here in our spoiler section is stuff that has been leaked.
It's in the public domain. It's in the public domain in some way, whether it's been in an article or people have seen things from filming, or things people have said publicly. Then it's yeah.
And so we will, and when we get to our spoiler section in this episode, we'll talk a little bit more about what prompted us to both have interest in the show. And but yeah, so another thing was that a couple weeks ago, it was really hot here. I'm in the US in the Chicago area. We had a record heat wave, and I spent a little bit too much time in the pool and got heat exhaustion.
Oh dear.
So which usually I am just working like crazy, but I was forced to kind of take some time off. And I thought, what the hell? I'm just going to watch Dead City. It was 6 episodes. I really didn't want to watch it because I'm kind of annoyed by the Maggie Negan dynamic. But I watched it and I actually really enjoyed it a lot. And probably going to cover that after this. But I had the same, Dead City was 6 episodes and we've only had 1 episode of this show so far. But I actually really liked the first episode.
Yeah. I think it's was better than I thought. You say when you go into something like this, a lot of the stuff we'd heard sounded so bad, and I thought, okay, but it didn't seem as bad in context. So I
Yeah.
think it was a lot more captivating than I expected.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will never forget the first time the photos came out. The photos were leaked of the killer nuns, and
Yeah.
what is happening here?
The Sound of Music's changed a bit, hasn't
Yes.
it?
Yes, exactly. But yeah, it was interesting. I liked the characters, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest.
Yeah.
Um but this episode is titled L'Âme Perdue, which
Hmm.
means the lost soul in English.
Yeah.
Um It was directed by Daniel Percival and written by David Zabel, the showrunner. And I mean, basically, it's a bunch of French actors and Norman Reedus as of right now.
Yes.
Now Clemence Posey is she's a bit more familiar to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Apologies for bringing up anything
Yes.
to do with Harry Potter in the year 2023, but you know,
Yeah. It's yes. We're not condoning it. Just that she was in Harry Potter, and a lot of people know her from that.
yes, exactly. But yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into it.
Mm.
So the first scene, we see Daryl floating on what at first I thought was a log, but it was basically an overturned rowboat.
Yeah.
He's tied up to it, and it's moving close to shore, and we hear Judith's voice saying you deserve a happy ending, which is what we heard in the Walking Dead finale.
Yeah.
I am hoping that we get to see what happened before this.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they explained it later on that he wasn't just floating in the ocean the entire
No.
time, because I didn't think he was, but I saw a lot of comments
No.
from people who thought that, and I'm like,
Yes.
okay, no, that he'd be dead. He'd
That would
be
be
dead
like
a long time ago.
Yeah, that would be like 4 weeks floating or something.
Yeah.
Don't think he would last that long floating across the Atlantic.
But I mean,
In
it's
whatever.
The Walking
Yeah.
Dead, so who knows?
Yeah. Exactly. There is a level of you've got to suspend your disbelief a little bit going into this, just the entire principle of it, and just accept, look, okay, this is going to be ridiculous. Let's just move on and just accept that that's the premise. That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. We will never forget the van drop.
No. Yes. It's turning onto its head. No, it's magically not. Let's land it on its tires. Yeah. and let's not even talk about Glenn's fake out's death. Sure, a bunch of walkers wouldn't eat his arms and legs which are exposed. They would just focus on what is in the middle. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or his face that's screaming.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
We could do probably like 6 episodes just on all the ridiculousness.
Yes, we could on all these. Yeah. Somebody in the writer's room just went, "Oh, it'll just do. Nobody will notice." And we're like, "Yes, you did."
And we do get a couple of eye rolling moments in this episode for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, he. One thing that I liked. I always really appreciate moments like this. He falls off the boat, which wakes him up, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to shore, and he sees a little, like a sand pail and looks inside it, and there's water, like, rainwater, obviously. And he drinks it. I always like
Yeah, me too.
moments
Yeah.
like that,
Believable stuff that just makes it realistic. As we say, in the face of all the disbelief, you have to have these moments to ground it.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
It's
make
like,
it
it
like,
makes
yeah,
sense,
we know
but
what he's going through.
yeah, I mean, it's very believable that there would be a random sand pail sitting there in the
Yeah,
sand. I mean, that's very, and it probably would be filled with rainwater, because you would have thought it,
yeah,
you'd think it would have rained at some point.
yeah,
But so I always, I appreciate stuff like that.
yeah.
But he finds a really cool abandoned boat. It's too bad it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But this
And
I'm really interested in this boat and the owners.
yeah, yes. Can I just say that I've seen some reviewers say that the boat owner is British. The boat owner was Irish. Never
Yes.
make that mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
As an Irish woman who had a grandmother from Ireland,
Yeah.
I recognize an Irish brogue when I hear one, for
Yeah.
sure.
Cillian Murphy, if you ever watch an interview with Cillian Murphy where they try to call him British and he's like, no, I am Irish. That tells you the response. So yeah, an Irish family's boat, which has been abandoned for we don't know how long. Years,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, the tape was quite old.
Yeah.
I mean, he finds a tape, a tape recorder in the boat.
Yeah.
He finds pictures of the family. And when he plays the tape, he's listening to this man talk about him and his daughter Holly and his wife, who he had to put down after she had a heart attack. But the things that he's referencing, it sounds like this tape is probably from like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just after the turn, that they were looking for a safe haven, they'd escaped. So yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And who knows? Well, we can guess what happened to them, but they've left their boat still as if they just left it. It's still got stuff, their personal belongings on it, as we see photographs, and as we see the little girl's cuddly penguin, which Daryl has a cuddle of.
Yeah. And some nasty ass water.
Yeah. Yes.
I kind of gagged a little when I saw him drinking that. Not gonna lie.
So you don't know what's in that. Maybe it was cleaning fluid for the engine for the boat. You don't know what's in it. Don't guzzle it first.
Right?
Yeah. Check first.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Daryl finds a map. He realizes that he's in France.
Yeah.
And he he's kind of he's got a map there, and he's checking it out, kind of trying to, plot out a path for himself. Now let me ask you what I found it interesting that, we got these pictures. I don't know if the pictures and the penguin were just there to, and the tape recording with the man like mentioning his daughter's name. And I don't know if these things were just there to tell a story that something clearly bad happened, for them to have these very personal items there. Or if we saw all of this because we'll see them later, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe, could be. Yeah, and I think I think they existed purely to drive home Daryl's feelings. Because obviously in these scenes, he's got no one to talk to. So we have to get his inner monologue in a way. Thank goodness they didn't have him speaking it. And I think this was basically saying, the fact that when Daryl left, he left Judith and RJ and Carol and Dog. And the fact that this is this man with his wife and a daughter and a dog, I think is just driving home to those who maybe didn't quite remember exactly how he left. Like, he has this family too that he's left. And he's missing them. You know, when the man says on the tape that his daughter just wants things to go back to the way they were. She just wants to go home. And that's clearly what's on poor Daryl's mind. He's like, wow, I'm in a whole other country.
Yeah.
You know, not just like I'm away from home and I might not see my family again. It's like I'm in a whole ass other country across an ocean. So I think it was just that. But it would be nice if we saw them again. That would have been a really nice touch. But I suspect they're no
it would
longer
be interesting. My husband watched this with me, and
oh yeah,
we made several jokes when Daryl sat down and was looking at the penguin. We made several jokes about how this was going to be his Wilson.
That's brilliant. Yes. Why didn't we think of that? Yes.
I wish, you know.
That would have been fantastic.
I would have loved to seen Daryl roaming France talking to a stuffed penguin. That would have been amazing.
That would have been so good. Oh, now I'm thinking, right, okay, scrap the rest of the season. Let's just have this. Let's just have Daryl and his pet penguin.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So we're, all right.
He didn't even put it in his penguin. He didn't even put it in his bag. He didn't take it with him.
I'm kind of upset about that.
Yeah.
Screw you, Daryl. I hate you now for leaving that penguin.
Oh dear.
But yeah, like, you feel bad for him because he's just listening to this guy's sad story, and he's just, thinking about, I mean, he's probably got a million emotions going on right now. He's scared to death, and alone, and like, could you imagine just waking up in a random country and you have no idea how you got there?
Yeah.
And you're all alone.
And you don't speak the language.
You don't speak the lange, and most of the population is gone.
Yes.
And there's no modernized way for you to get back home easily.
No, exactly. It would be like you've washed up on a desert island, Pretty
much.
It's the same experience. You're completely, you think you're alone, you think there's no chance of you're ever going back, and you think this is it for you, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So the next morning he's, Daryl leaves the boat. I really like that boat. It's a shame that he couldn't make use of it.
It was a beautiful little harbor as well. I don't know. I can't remember where that was filmed, but it was gorgeous. And they didn't seem to do a lot to it in terms of set. That's the way it just looked. All those buildings, right up so close to the water. Stunning. Not great in climate change, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But he before he leaves the boat, he records a message on the tape recorder, saying his name's Daryl Dixon. He comes from a place called the Commonwealth in America, and if he doesn't make it back home, he wants them to know that he tried, and he's still trying. Even if he's dead, he's still trying. Even if he's a walker. He pulls out a boat hook to use as a weapon. Now,
so I just wanted to say something here. Yeah. When he was packing his bag to leave the boat, he folds up his vest and puts it away, and I thought that was really interesting that he wasn't going to wear it. He's not that Daryl, he's a different guy, and he's putting that away. Hopefully we'll see it come out again at some point in the series. But I thought that was really interesting that he himself is like, let's put that someplace, and obviously it means so much to him because Judith painted one of the wings, but I thought that was a nice touch. I really liked that they did that. He's now that. French Daryl. And French Daryl wears suspenders and a necktie. He doesn't wear a vest.
I just need someone to give him a beret and a baguette.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my
Let's put him on a bicycle with a string of garlic around his neck. Let's just go the full hog, Daryl.
Oh my God. When I recorded an intro, like a preview for this podcast, I like wrote a quick little script. And I think I said at one point in it, I think I said, "Mo do, y'all."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, Connie said he signs with a southern accent, so we'll hear French with a southern accent. Hopefully.
Yeah, maybe. I would like to hear that. But so this next scene was quite interesting. He comes across an abandoned market, and we see him get attacked by what are referred to as burners.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on here? Like,
yeah, it's like they were acid, or when they showed a clip of this, I think they showed the first 10 minutes at San Diego Comic-Con, and it was online for a while. I had misremembered. I thought that it was like their blood was acid, but Daryl gets burned just from them touching him. It's not like their blood gets spilled on him. So like their skin is acid, and that is, obviously we have the world beyond Coda, in France, a laboratory in France with scientists. There's some experimenting going on. Or it could be, just like COVID, they have mutated all by themselves.
Yeah.
They've whatever, perhaps they all died close to some acid or something. They all fell in a vat of acid. No, they would have been burnt away. They drank battery acid. I have no idea. I don't know. I wish I knew a bit more about science of how that could turn your blood acidic or your skin acidic. Because obviously we all do have a pH balance. It's very weird. And it means it's even more dangerous because it's not just a case of their mouths getting near you, it's any part of them.
You know what it actually kind of reminded me of, what it made me think of, is like I have so much respect for fanfic writers, but I myself am not a big fanfic reader. But there was one particular fanfic that I read. And let me know if you pick up which one I'm thinking about.
Okay.
And it was amazing. And it was by a very well-known fanfic writer in the fandom. And it was basically kind of like an imagined plot line for the Daryl and Carol spinoff when it was happening. And
no, I don't know this one at all, though.
Oh, it blew my mind. Basically, Daryl and Carol both get the zombie virus. They both get.
Oh wow!
Well, Carol gets bitten.
Yeah.
But doesn't die. She just carries the virus. She's immune.
Yeah.
And she passes it on to Daryl, who also finds out that he's immune.
Wow.
And there's like a whole bunch of people in the country that are all congregating at this center out west that are immune, and they're basically trying to find all the other people that. But when they touch you, like Carol and Daryl can basically kill somebody just by touching them.
Wow. Oh, right. That's cool. Yeah. 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 That does. Yes, that sounds like
cool. Oh my God, it was awesome. And that was a Silver Sundown.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah.
Great writer.
I should know it, but obviously I haven't read
it. Yeah, it was. When I read it, I was so pissed off because I'm like, the spinoff is not going to be this good.
No, that's the problem with fan fiction.
I know.
Sometimes it ruins reality.
It really does. But
Sad thing.
but yeah, so anyway, like Daryl gets a burn mark in the shape of his hand
Yeah,
where the burner grabbed him.
yeah,
Um, so that's yeah, that's really freaky. It's interesting to see walkers like this many years later,
yeah,
they're finding ways for them to become more of a threat.
yeah.
Um, but
And I think that's
I'm
important for them to do, because it was, it was a bit samey. They weren't the threat. It was humans were the big threat, and it's just like, well, as long as you um keep your distance, you're not going to, get, unless you get trapped or something, you're not going to get killed by a walker nowadays. So
yeah,
it was good to change it up and make them more of a threat again. And as I say, this is more of a threat because they just have to touch you. Um,
yeah.
so yeah,
And
you've got to
as
keep
we
even
see
further away.
later, I mean, he almost loses his arm, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that was I mean, I hope that we get a good explanation for this later on and they
yeah,
don't keep it from us forever as to what's
yeah.
going on with these walkers. But he he continues on with his journey, takes care of his wound. Um, and we see who we later find out to be Isabelle watching him
Hmm.
from afar. Um, and he just kind of ignores her
Yeah.
and goes on his way. He's not looking to make friends. Um, he sees a sign that I was very proud of myself that I knew what this said. I didn't have to look it up. But because my husband, I mean, I took like a couple of years of French in
Yeah, me too.
like high school.
Yeah.
Um, but my husband was still like the whole time. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? So I was all proud of myself when he
Hey.
came upon the sign. I'm like, I know what that means. Yeah, he sees a sign saying "Je vous aime," um, or "vous aime," sorry,
Yeah,
which means um, God loves you. And so which he figures out from his French to English dictionary.
yeah,
Um, so he then comes upon a farm with a young woman and her grandfather.
mhm,
Their names are Maribel and Guillaume. And the man has he's got a like a walking stick and he's injured and he has a blindfold on.
yeah,
And she explains that that he's hurt his ankle, um, and apparently he's blind, I guess, which is
yeah.
why he's
That was
wearing
the
the
implication. Yeah,
yeah. I still don't know why he would be wearing a blindfold.
maybe
Like,
they were. It's for people in France who they would think he got burned with the burners. They burned his eyes, maybe, and that's how he's
oh,
blind. So
yeah,
he's got a
yeah,
bandage over his eyes. Yeah,
gotcha.
because they. Yeah,
Yeah, that would make sense. That would be a good way to pretend that. Yeah.
yeah.
Because I was like, you wouldn't want to signal to people that you were
No,
blind because that
no,
signals
you
like
don't.
a weakness. I
Yeah,
mean, like a vulnerability, not a weakness, but a vulnerability.
no,
Sorry,
a
I
vulnerability.
hate that
Yeah,
word.
in
Um,
that world.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And yes, but yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point that he, you know, it's he has a good cover story there.
Yeah.
But, which we later find out is bullshit. Um, but, he Daryl continues to not be all that friendly. Um, but they offer to trade him some food for some medical supplies. And Daryl's like, he makes the trade right away. Um, he's not really interested in being buddy and chatting much, but he gives him some medical stuff and lets him, they let him take a bunch of apples. Um, and he tells him he's trying to get back to America. And my husband and I were both like, when he said this, and Maribel kind of laughed. We were like, oh, she's laughing because Daryl, she knows that Daryl doesn't realize that like the ocean's really big.
Yeah. Typical. It was very much the European attitude to Americans, like, oh, your geography knowledge isn't very good, is it?
Oh my god, so funny. But yeah, they ask if they can go with him, they can help each other. Um, but he's, Daryl's not interested.
No.
um, just then a Jeep arrives with a couple of men, Henri and Michelle.
Mhm.
And they force Daryl to give up his weapons and take a seat. There's a big fight that ensues, and it results in basically Daryl kills Henri. Um, and he gets shot. Did he get shot in the ear or the neck?
Yeah, something. I think like the shot sort of went between him and the other guy. So yeah, I would say sort of ear-ish. And I wouldn't have. I don't think it was a direct hit, but like shrapnel kind of thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say
Yeah.
that, like, I don't know how he would be conscious if he like,
No.
that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Um, but, after this big fight, uh, Daryl asks them to hand him his medical bag, and that's when the facade slips
Mhm.
off, and, yeah, the guy takes off his blindfold and hits him with the stick, and, I mean, like, do you think these are, like, evil people, or do you think they really just wanted a whole bag of medical supplies?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know
I
what to
think
think.
they're yeah. I'm trying to think of other characters that would be similar that we came across. I guess like when Daryl first comes across Dwight in the woods, um, Dwight and Sherry and her sister, whose name I've forgotten, Tina, who was diabetic. And so I think
Yeah,
it's like that like they're not necessarily bad. They're just like, we don't care about you. We want what we want. And it may be that they needed the medical supplies or they knew they could be traded for something valuable. So
yeah,
yeah, they were just after what they were, get whatever they wanted to get. And Mirabelle kills one of the soldiers herself,
oh, yeah, she
which
does.
I think, yeah, I was just going to say that. It was Michelle. She killed Michelle? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, yes, yeah. So it's just because
yeah, yeah,
it comes up again later.
yeah, exactly. He was actually about to kill Daryl,
Yeah.
when she killed him. Um, and, she, like, yeah, so they waste those guys.
Mhm.
But, they, yeah, so and then Maribel and Guillaume, just take off. Um,
Yeah.
Daryl is kind of passing out, and we see a woman kind of like, through Daryl's eyes, it's just like he can't, it's very hazy. We
Blur.
see a
Yeah.
woman with
Blurry.
a rifle, and it was so funny. My husband was like, "Ooh, is it Ex Machina Carol?"
Now, yes.
Like,
I I wondered if that was deliberate. I think they did that deliberately because
yeah,
you can't make out much about her other than her kind of torso. You can't really make out her head, and the
yeah.
other than she's carrying a big gun, which of course Carol's trademark. So I do think it was meant to be like, is that so the audience thinks, oh, is that no, it's enough.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do. I think it was deliberate too because it was
Yeah,
like the way she was dressed kind of
yes,
reminded me of a lot of Carol. Like, I mean, if you saw this on the main show, you would think that was Carol.
yes,
Like,
absolutely, yeah, definitely.
um, but he wakes up. He wakes up tied to a bed.
Mhm.
And there is Isabelle, the Watcher, who saved him. She's a nun, apparently.
Yay!
And she seems very nice. And he explains that she explains that he's tied up for his own safety, which seems weird to me. I don't know. Like I was confused why
I think it's because they were cauterizing his wound. If he'd
Oh,
moved,
that's right.
he would have hurt himself more. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's true. But I mean, like, why wouldn't you have a stranger tied up anyway in that situation? I mean, it's
yeah, he's a total stranger in a abbey full of nuns and one child. So you
yeah,
probably would, to be cautious, at least lock the doors and maybe tie them up.
yeah. I mean, if he's completely evil, if he's some evildoer, then he needs to be tied up. And if he's
Yeah,
not, then he's gonna understand why you would
exactly.
want him tied up.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she's taking care of him, and she says that she explains basically that um he had a wound from a burner and they had to cauterize it. That otherwise the infection could have spread, and I mean
Mhm.
he could have lost his arm.
Yeah.
Um there would be so many more dead people if this were really I mean if the zombie apocalypse actually happened like this, there would be
Yeah.
so many more dead people just from like cancer and infections and
Yeah.
like
The way if we go back to the Middle Ages and things, that's essentially what society would be. Yes, you have the knowledge, but you don't have the actual equipment. So
yeah,
people would be dying of septicemia
yeah,
so much, and just
yeah,
general, people died from. I hate to say it, but diarrhea. People who died of dysentery or whatever because they didn't have anything to treat it with. And so there
right,
would be, yeah, I mean, hello, glasses. I'd be dead because I'd be walking into everything. I wouldn't see a
yeah,
thing without glasses. So,
yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
It's funny that you brought that up because I'm actually starting because 5 podcasts, going from 1 to 5 podcasts while I'm recovering from back surgery isn't enough.
Obviously.
Um, I actually have a 6th one coming up soon as well too,
Oh,
on on mental health and disability.
oh,
And
awesome.
that is going to really short kind of bite-sized episodes. But
Yeah,
that's going to be one of my first topics
there we
is
go.
I'm going to talk about glasses and you know, how people like that we see as perfectly healthy, who are otherwise perfectly healthy, um, don't in a situation like this would identify as disabled
Yeah,
if they
totally.
had
Yeah,
vision issues.
yeah,
But they don't have to because society has evolved to
yeah.
accommodate them. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track. There's a lot of tangents on my shows.
There's a lot of tangents in any conversation I have, so this is this is why I fit in.
Yeah. So, just so everybody knows, our episodes are going to be 6 hours long. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. You can 52 weeks of the year. If you cut them up into half-hour chunks, you'll be fine. They'll last you for ages.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Um, but yeah, so Isabel says, she knows that he's from a place called the Commonwealth, because she found his tape recorder. Um,
Basically, read his diary. How rude.
I know. God. But he asks, or she asks him how he ended up in France, and he just said a bunch of bad decisions. Um, and which I was really, I was so glad that it didn't just get left at that,
Yeah, yeah,
because I kind of rolled my eyes.
yeah.
Because I'm so used to The Walking Dead not explaining things. So when he
Hmm.
said a bunch of bad decisions, I'm like, they're not gonna explain more than that, are they? But
That would be awful.
no.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
thank goodness.
But she tells him to clean up and to so he doesn't like become vulnerable to the infection.
Mhm.
Um, she she calls him Mr. Dixon. And he's like, Daryl. I'm like, yeah, Daryl probably doesn't want to be called Mr. Dixon. I can't imagine
No,
that.
no, definitely not. I mean, he mentions his father shortly after that, in that scene. Not
Yeah.
a great guy, so not one you would
Yeah.
want to be named after.
Yeah, definitely. Um, he's watching out the window and seeing the nuns playing around with a kid who seems determined to break an ankle.
Yeah. What was that? I'm assuming he was playing that he was a horse on a knight on a horse. So he had his
Yeah.
feet tied to metal cans or something. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
quick way to break an ankle and die in the zombie apocalypse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
um and Daryl ends up falling asleep in the bathtub. Um
Hmm.
and has a nightmare of him floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
Um Daryl comes to check on him again and brings him some clothes and some honey garlic to treat his hand wound, um, or his head wound. And he's kind of looking over the wall decorations and seeing that there's a lot of religious uh,
Hmm.
imagery, not just nothing that subscribes to one religion.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a Buddha and there's a Quran and there's
yeah, and
all religious paraphernalia.
exactly. Um, Yeah, and she explains that their abbey is part of a group called the Union of Hope, and so it's a much larger group, and they're basically open to all messengers of faith and perseverance, is what she says.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, my atheists like myself would not be welcome. I guess.
Well, if you were a humanist, maybe they would, as if you had faith in humanity, as they do.
Yeah,
I suspect that you would be okay with that because it's about having I suppose, a way of thinking rather than subscribing to a particular idea of
yeah,
a divine being or whatever.
yeah, that's true. Um, but she explains that this reminded me of Herschel a lot.
Oh
She
yeah.
explains that the union believes that humanity is enduring a test from which
Mhm.
they'll soon be delivered, um, which is something similar to what Herschel said in season
Yeah,
2.
that's right. Yeah, when he kept his wife and family in the barn as walkers, and we all saw how that turned out.
Yep.
So, not sure it's a great way of thinking, but hey, whatever gets you through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, and she asks Daryl about his scars, and he says his dad was a smoker. Um,
Mm.
I mean, like he's got some whip marks on his back
Yeah, yeah.
for
I'm
sure.
not quite sure. Yeah, I didn't see obvious like burn marks, but it was
Yeah,
more. Yeah, but
I'm
I
sure
would.
they're there.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm glad it. What's funny is I noticed that a couple of Norman Reedus's tattoos that we've seen before
Hmm.
were covered up.
Oh yes, so they were. You're right.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
notice that at the time, but now I'm thinking about it. You're right, which I'm very glad of.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad his Norman chest tattoo was covered up.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it in case
That'd be hard to
anybody
explain.
yeah, yeah, exactly. For those who don't know, Norman Reedus has a tattoo on his chest with the name Norman, but I guess he got that after his dad died, I think, right? Because that
Yeah,
was
I
his
think
dad's
so.
name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's his dad's
Um,
name. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, his dad's name was Norman. But yeah, there was. Doesn't he have doesn't he have a heart
Yeah,
on
he
his
has a
chest?
heart. He has a
Yeah.
large heart on his chest. I didn't notice if his rabbit on his arm is was there because that was a fairly recent addition, and it's a very artistic one. The ones on his
Mhm.
hands. you could imagine somebody like Daryl having done by an amateur in the
Right.
apocalypse, because they're just sort of scratchy type drawings.
Yeah.
But that was a really intricate drawing, so I was like, no, you couldn't have got
Yeah.
that. So hopefully that got off. Well, not got off literally, but
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
digitally removed is what I mean.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the hand tattoo never bothered me because it's it's very
yeah,
crude, so it looks
yes,
it, it could easily be a post-apocalyptic tattoo.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it like we've seen these tattoos and now they're suddenly gone,
yeah,
which is just annoying.
yeah. I don't like that
Um,
kind of
yeah.
continuity errors. Yeah. At
um,
least these scars were there. I was thinking, if I was the person, makeup in charge, I would have gone back and saying, right, what injuries did Daryl get during the Walking Dead? He was
right?
shot in his shoulder by Dwight. He was stabbed here. Make sure you covered all these scars that he would have. But it's
Yeah.
too much work.
You know what? Does does he have we ever seen a scar from when Andrea shot him?
No, no, I don't think we have. No,
Yeah, I didn't think so.
because that was in his temple, was it? Yeah, no, I've never seen
Yeah.
that.
But I guess his hair would probably cover that up though.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's I do like I do like when they show, and they did this with Rick too, where they show like you see scars from
yeah,
injuries that you can actually remember on the show. Um,
yes,
like Daryl had a couple of scars like from stab wounds.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it's I always like when they show consistency like that, and it's kind of like a callback to you know to the character's history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so she asks him about his scars, and she also tells him that, or he also tells her that he used to have a brother. Um, she tells him she had a sister, and he also
Hmm.
notices that she has scars on her wrist.
Yeah.
Um, and she says that the parish priest used to say that our scars show that we have suffered, but more importantly, that we have healed from our suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
think,
fluffy.
yeah, I think though, or at least let me put it this way. I hope that is a strong theme in this season or in this show, full stop, that Daryl is healing and that we will see active healing. In season 5 in Consumed, when Daryl picks up the child abuse psychology book, and all the fans were like, we want to see that come back. We want to see
Yeah.
that story followed on. Never mentioned again. So
Yeah.
I really am hoping that with this show, when Norman Reedus had said, he wanted the space for Daryl to give it justice, to give Daryl justice, and I hope that's what it means. That it's not just action or whatever. That we're going to see Daryl psychologically study himself and say, right, okay, what have I gone through? What am I doing in life? And that's the whole "you deserve a happy ending" too. Is that he studies his life and says, okay, what do I want? What do I want out of life? What do I need to move past from? What issues are holding me back from living other than the apocalypse?
Yeah.
Issues within himself are holding him back from the life he wants to lead, and
Yeah.
not being satisfied. So I hope this idea of the healing from your scars is what's going to happen in Daryl Dixon.
Yeah. That would be
Fingers
nice
crossed.
to see
Yeah,
for sure. Um, Speaking of, when you mentioned the book, which was one of my favorite
yeah.
moments, um, I I forgot about the fact that I noticed that he grabbed a book when he was on the boat. Um, and
Oh,
I wonder
yeah. What was it?
I don't know. He hasn't. I don't think he's brought it out of his book, so we didn't. I don't think we've gotten a good look at it yet.
No.
Um, but I'm always curious when I see people reading books on shows.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like there are hints about,
Yes.
into the character's path
Yeah.
from that point forward or what they're going through. And I don't think they actually showed what book he grabbed, but I hope we see it later.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but so Isabelle starts showing Daryl around the Abbey. Um, and she tells him about Laurent, who is the little boy that he saw.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an orphan who basically grew up there. And Daryl then notices the armory, which is super cool.
Yeah.
I loved this. She explains that medieval churches often had weapon rooms because they were often needed back then. See, like, it's seeing stuff like that and hearing stuff like that as an American is so cool because, like,
Yeah.
we don't have anything that old, you know? Like, we could never, like, we can't relate to that.
No.
But so yeah, that's really cool. But so they have all these medieval weapons, and she says that they can defend themselves if they need to. He Daryl's kind of checking out a gun collection.
Yeah.
And Isabelle mentions Père Jean, and says that he was a collector. His grandfather fought in the Marquis, and he notices that there's a gun missing, and Isabelle says that's one that she uses. And Daryl checks out Père Jean's office and sees a CB radio, and asks Isabelle if he can use it, and she says, "When you're healed."
Yeah, which is an odd thing to say.
Yeah.
Do you have to be healed to use a radio? You just pick it up. Hello. Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know if she's just worried that he's gonna, just take off if he hears somebody, but anyway, like, she says that the last person she reached was a Spaniard a few weeks ago who spoke pretty good English. And he asks Isabelle how she ended up there, and then she says a bunch of good decisions. She continues giving him a tour of the Abbey, and one of the nuns brings Daryl a tray of food over, which fortunately is not drugged. And he's checking out the scene, and we see Laurent, the little boy, watching and mirroring Daryl, which was kind of cute.
It was cute. I like that scene because he's obviously not around men other than Père Jean very much. So to have a man there, he obviously is like, oh, and he's got hair like mine, nice luscious wavy hair.
Yes, exactly.
He's the guy I want to be like.
Yeah. So we see the nuns talking, and Veronique, I think is her name, says that Daryl doesn't belong there, and Isabelle, like, thinks that she says something like, what good are we if we can't take care of someone injured?
Yeah.
And Veronique asks if Isabelle thinks that he's the one, and she says yes, she's seen him fight. And Veronique says that Daryl belongs out there with the what did she say? The faithless and the violent.
Yes. That sums him up nicely.
Yeah, I know. And that he's a person who lives without God. And Isabelle says, well, so was I once. So that's interesting. I mean, so I guess she's. I'd like to. I'm a little unclear on exactly when Isabelle found this convent.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know a little more about that.
There's some hints in the trailer because we see Isabelle before the turn. We see flashbacks to her as the turn happens, and we see her with a baby, which is presumably Lauren,
Oh,
and
that's
she is
right.
not. She's not a nun at that point. She's looks normal. So I'm assuming she finds the Abbey at the same time as the world collapses. So
Yeah.
she's been there 12 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Roughly.
That makes sense. Yeah, and that's about the first episode, half of the episode. Why don't you take us through the second half as we as we meet my new favorite character?
Yes, the next important scene involves a Rubik's Cube,
Yes.
which lets nothing in life is complete without a Rubik's Cube. I love that the world has fallen apart, but Rubik's Cubes have survived.
I know, right?
Laurent comes and befriends Daryl, strikes up a conversation with him, which is a weird conversation for a 12-year-old boy to have. He's very, I'm great at all these subjects. I know all the capitals.
Yeah.
And and wants to know, hey, do you know how many people lived in France before the turn? Do you know how long it's going to take to get back to that? Sure, that's it. Yeah.
I was definitely rolling my eyes pretty hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love it because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's possible that he's being divergent coded, because the way he's speaking about facts and figures and numbers, and that he's a bit he doesn't have the social skills, but that could be because he's a 12-year-old boy who's been brought up by nuns. So it's I'm not going to say that's definitely it, but it's somebody could see it that way, that he's that kind of has that kind of brain. But
yeah, that's as somebody who's neurodivergent myself, it's interesting that I hadn't even thought of that. My mind immediately just went to, okay, Walking Dead is doing their typical thing with overly precocious children.
Yes. All children in The Walking Dead must be precocious.
Yes.
Let us never forget Sam. Oh dear.
But I love Laurent though. I love him.
Because they Isabelle has told us he's not just very clever. They believe he has some perception powers. He can see into people, and he immediately does that with Daryl. He's immediately saying, I feel your sadness. I know you have issues. And he asks Daryl if he has a wife or children or parents, and Daryl's like, no. But he Laurent says, no, but I still feel your pain. He feels things. Is the way you described it, though. That's a bit of an odd phrasing, but I'm sure we will find out he does. And there is a hint of that comes up later, that he doesn't just have feelings. He's slightly psychic. He can tell the future a little bit because he has done a drawing of Daryl 3 weeks before Daryl turned up.
Until we saw that, I was like, oh, okay, so he's just an INFP.
Yeah. He's high on the empathy scale, but no, actually he's psychic.
Yeah.
We go back to Mirabelle and her grandfather, whether he is or not. And a jeep pulls up to them to ask him if they've seen these two soldiers who have gone missing. They're not called soldiers. They call them, let me just get the pronunciation, guerriers, which apparently translates as warriors.
Yes.
So this is Caudron, a guy with a lovely face tattoo. Speaking of tattoos, he is looking for these two soldiers who have gone missing. And oh dear, one of them is his brother. He questions Mirabelle, offers them a reward, give us information. So of course they give up the information they have about Daryl, but our grandfather is too cheeky, and that's a very British phrase, cheeky. Asking for what's my reward then? So his reward is to be killed by Caudron. And Caudron goes off to find this American who they believe has gone to the Abbey, which they're correct, and thus sets up the villain story. Although, to be fair, there is more to it, by the end of the episode. But this is the the villain origin is that
Yes.
Daryl has killed his brother, or rather, it was Mirabelle that killed his brother, but she told him it's Daryl.
Yeah.
The Daryl is then seen trying to break into that radio room. When they left it, Isabelle locked it. She really does not want him to use the radio. And I think the
Yeah.
conversation she had with the other nun is why, she's made up her mind. He's the one. He's leading. He's taking Lauren. And she doesn't want anything to get in the way of that. And as you say, if he contacted someone on the radio, he might be
I
off.
mean, to be fair, there are a lot of women and girls who have said the same thing about Daryl Dixon.
Yeah. And they would do a lot more than lock a door to keep him. There's a lot, being tied up into a bed, and I'm sure was, and if we saw into the minds of many fans, female and not female, we would see that, and poor Daryl suffering that quite often. But he's distracted from breaking into this room because he hears a walker growling, and he goes out and finds Laurent is reading to a walker who's behind a door, and this is their priest. And we all have flashbacks, as you mentioned, Herschel. We're back in Herschel territory again. They believe that the dead will come back to themselves. They'll be resurrected in some way, so they're keeping him around just in case. And of course, Daryl has been through this with the governor, with Herschel,
Yep.
And he knows, no, it's not a good idea. Do not, and even Michonne keeping her walker pets that she did. Do not keep.
I feel like if I were in a zombie apocalypse, even though I'd know better, I feel like I'm the type of person who would keep my husband's reanimated corpse alive. I hate to say it, but I feel like I am.
Oh no, you've been bitten and you haven't told anybody. Oh no.
I would just cut off his, I do like a Michonne and cut off his jaw and his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just talk to him, keep him around and talk to him. So I don't get
lost. Be honest. Sometimes I probably get about the same amount of conversation if he was a walker than a if he's not. If there's a TV in the room, he might as well be a walker. He's got no attention. He's got attention for one thing, and that's it.
I can't wait to tell my husband later tonight. Hey, honey, I fantasized about your death on the podcast.
But don't worry, I keep you around.
I do want to bring up that when Laurent left Daryl, he was being called for poetry with Père Jean.
Oh yeah,
So this was what was referred to as poetry with Père Jean. I'm reading poetry to Père Jean's reanimated corpse.
Yeah, and he'll correct your syntax.
Yeah,
as a walker.
Yeah. Oh,
so of course this just leads to Daryl. He's already thinking, oh, these people are too godly, too obsessed with their beliefs, and now he thinks, okay, they're completely have no grounding in reality of what reality is, and he's having no interest in it, and he wants to leave at that point. So but Isabelle is telling him, no, you can't. Lauren needs a father figure. I mean, talk about pressure. You've just met the boy. By the way, you need to be his father figure. 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
If a woman does that to a guy, by the way, I've got a son. You're his new dad.
Oh my God. Oh,
excuse me.
I hated this whole thing. It made me cringe.
Yeah, this is the part of it that I think is the not least believable, because crossing the ocean is the least believable, but that is hardest to stomach as a Walking Dead fan, is this idea that Daryl Dixon is seen wherever he goes as the new, the one, the chosen one. Everybody seems to see him as this godlike creature. And and she's seen him fight once and go, no, he's the one. And he's like, I'm sure there are plenty of people in France who can fight off soldiers or walkers or a combination of both. Daryl is special, of course he is, because we know his character. But if you don't know him, he's just a dude who can fight a bit, and he's not that young as he once was, So it's really strange to think, what is it that she sees in him instantaneously that makes her think he's the guy that's been sent? Because she doesn't focus heavily on the drawing from Laurent that, you excuse me, you match this drawing, clearly it's you. It's more photo fits from the apocalypse that this is you. He's got the same hair. There is no explanation for why she just decides Daryl is all or nothing. We are having him. I'm going to stop him using the radio. I don't want him to leave. He's the man.
I like that Daryl criticized Laurent's art skills.
Yeah.
It's like he should stick to math.
Yeah. When he was doing the generations of French people having sex to bring back the population, that was fine. But no, psychic drawings, no thank you. He tries to leave, and he says something which is interesting, because in the trailer, this line was in the trailer. He says, "I've already made plans. I'm not going to make any more." And I had assumed that came later in the season when I saw it in the trailer. I thought, this is him. He's made a plan. He's got a contact. We see him speaking to another character in the trailer. He's trying to make a contact to get a boat. So I assumed that was what it was. But it wasn't. I was like, what plans do you have at this point, Daryl? Because you're in another country, you know no one, and you said, no, mate, I've got plans. So I thought that was really interesting for that line to come this early, that he has a plan. He thinks in his mind he has a plan. I don't know what it is, but
he's supposed to meet Dog in Paris. They have a lunch date in Paris.
The Lady and the Tramp, the Daryl and Dog in Paris.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was, he is adamant he is leaving, and
yeah.
And it does remind me of Dwight, that whole arc when he meets Dwight, and he's, they take him hostage and there's fighting, and he leaves them. He's like, no, I'm going back to my people. But Daryl always has this conscience, that his guilty conscience, he can't leave people in trouble. And even though he does leave the Abbey, and he goes out, but he sees Caudron and his men approaching in jeeps. And as typically, wherever Daryl Dixon goes, so too does chaos follow quickly afterwards.
Yeah, he's the new Rick Grimes,
Yeah, he is.
A community could be standing for decades, and then suddenly Rick Grimes shows up and...
And that's exactly what happens. Caudron's men come in. We're looking for Daryl, and they hide Laurent in the room. And Laurent does a Carol move. No, he didn't leave, but he forgot to lock the door. So he's keys jangled as he locked the door, and Caudron heard him. Thankfully, he's distracted by noise, and they found the Perdue and their saying, oh, look, there's a walker around. And he instructs some poor soldier who had known the priest to kill him. And then all hell breaks loose. We have fighting nuns. We have fighting Daryl. Daryl has returned to save them. And he doesn't. The standoff with the soldiers and the nuns, I thought, was hilarious. If that, if they didn't play that to be as ridiculous as...
no, we just lost John for a second, but
I'm back.
Okay, there you are. I got so scared. You completely went off screen for a second.
Both my screens went black and then came back. So a standoff with the nuns and the soldiers, and there's bloodshed, and we end up that the only people who are not injured are Isabelle, Laurent, Sylvie, who is a young nun, she's the one who brought Daryl his food, and Daryl and Codron himself leaves. He escapes, as always the leader does, because just leaves these men to die, and he goes. And so the poor, I don't know if she's the mother superior, but certainly the senior nurse, she has been injured, and they go to her in her dying words. She basically says to Daryl, she was right. You are the chosen one. You've got to lead him. Why don't you believe in God? And then she very dramatically dies. I thought that was quite a moment. She didn't just slip away. She went. Poor Mother Superior.
A bunch of us died because of you, so you're definitely the one.
Yeah.
No, I'm being dramatic there. Obviously, it wasn't like it was their decision to bring him in and take care of him.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was their own fault.
It was still dark. They wouldn't have died if it would. I just the thought that the entire abbey has been killed. Has lost everybody, and it's just like, oh well. How would Daryl, you did this. You better do this because you owe us big time, dude.
Right?
Yeah. Because it's very sort of nonchalant at the end that they're burning the bodies of the rest of the nuns, and it's just like, oh well, yeah. And Laurent gets his guitar out and has a little sing, which reminded me very much, of course, of the greatest youth on Walking Dead, Beth,
yes.
the singer. But it did remind me of the end of Seed, where they're all sitting around the fire outside the prison, and that was again a sort of bonding moment. And this is the moment when Daryl opens up more to Isabelle and says, I made you asked how I got here. I was on a boat. I went looking for something. He doesn't say what. He just says something, and that's something that seems to be a bit of. It's not entirely clear. Did Daryl leave in the first place to look for Rick and Michonne, or was he looking for something? Because Maggie asked him to go. It's not entirely clear. And then he says to Judith, "If I find them, I'll bring them back. Like, by the way, while I'm out there, if I find them." So it's not. Doesn't seem like he was directly looking for Rick, but maybe he was. I don't know. He just says, "I was looking for something, and all I found was trouble," in a good country song way. He ends up on a boat. Things went wrong on the boat, and he ended up in the water, and that's how he's here. He met a nun and a weird kid. So he agrees in exchange for them taking him to a port called Le Havre, I believe it is, and where he can get a boat home. He will lead them where they want to go because they're heading in the same direction anyway. And then we have the typical Walking Dead coda, which, they love a coda. And we are introduced to Madame Jeanette. I don't know how we're going to pronounce it. She's very in the mode of the baddie from The World Beyond, whose name completely escapes me.
I forgot her name too. I can't remember.
Yeah, but she's very like her.
Totally drawing a blank.
Yeah. She is a leader of some kind, and she is at the port Le Havre, and she is speaking to a boat captain who is reporting that sadly he had lost a prisoner, but he'd stopped a mutiny, so wasn't that good enough. There's a doctor, and they're doing tests, and it seems like they were test subjects, and the one who escaped, what was his name again? Oh yeah, Dixon. And so we set up that we have two people on Daryl's trail, Codron and Madame, whoever she works with. Does she work for the CRM? Is that part of their international? Is she the French chapter of the CRM?
I would hope so, because it would be really weird if there's like some other like counter agency out there that's
How many are there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when they announced a change of the location of the spin-off to France, there was a lot of very heated debate, which I was part of. And there were some people saying, oh, it has to be in France because of the World Beyond coda about France and the scientists and the variations on the mutations on the walkers. And I was not convinced about that at all. I didn't think that was why they did it. There were other reasons, which I won't go into. But as it became more leaked, what the story was going to be about, it's quite clear that is not the main story. The main story is Laurent and his faith and is he going to lead humanity? That's the story. This just seems to be a sort of side thing, but possibly it will become more important later. If it will it connect to the Rick and Michonne spin-off? Who knows? They've set up a lot of things paths that they can go down, and it's just a case of which ones are they going to pick up and which ones are they going to drop, because The Walking Dead is famous for that, for giving a start of a story and you think this is going to be really important and we're going to go there, and then they never mention it again. Frustrating.
Until someone figures out how to work it back into the story 3 years later.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how much that the CRM and the overarching, because they're the ones who have the resources to have these big boats and whatever the transportation. So if Daryl is ever going to get home again, one assumes he's going to have to use one of their boats.
Yeah, you would think. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's what do you think about do you think that this group that may or may not be part of the CRM, do you think they know anything? Well, wait, hold up, because I want to go back. I think I'm confused about something here.
Okay.
Are they also in France?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Are they? Yeah. I don't know. I think that's what we're being shown, is that they are not just in America, they are across the world. And that they are, I mean, she is a French person, to make that clear. She wasn't an American. And then the boat captain was French as well. But there is an assumption that it is all one overreaching unit, which then has local branches, like Hell's Angels. They've got their local branches. But I'm not sure.
I'm kind of wondering if there's any connection between this group and the nuns.
Yeah, that's a good question. The Union of Hope. What is there? How did they come about?
Yeah.
How far does that stretch? Is it in? Excuse me. Is the abbey, because an abbey would be a great place to hole up in an apocalypse, sure. But did they have a reason to be there? Because the soldier who kills the priest, he was brought up by that priest. He knows the priest, and so there is a history there, and he was a local person, and now he's a soldier. So did somebody come and recruit him, or did they start up from themselves? It's there's lots of unclearness. It's not a word. Of where all these groups, and hopefully we'll find out more as it goes through the season.
Yeah, it actually, I thought they did a pretty, I mean, just obviously with as long of a history with the show as we both have, having watched it, having watched The Walking Dead for so many years, it's like there are certain things that you come to expect, and typically I don't have all that. I don't have a ton of faith when The Walking Dead tries to do like a, like a puzzle box type of storyline, and you have to, because they don't necessarily, you usually don't find out most of the answers.
No.
But they did it. They somehow managed to get me invested in wanting to know who these people are, despite my history with the show. So I think that's a good sign.
I think with Codra, I was really interested in that they drew a very clear parallel between him and his brother and Daryl and Merle.
Yeah.
That was, he comes and he finds his brother as a walker and he has to kill him exactly as Daryl did with Merle. Now, that makes me think they are going to want us to care about him more than just as a villain. And then there was a shot of him after he'd left the Abbey of him crying in his car.
Yeah.
So they're showing him as a vulnerable side of him, a personal side of him, that he may have a more complex story than a typical, he's just a bad guy, he's just a soldier, or, like Preacher from the Reapers or whoever. He's just a bad guy and that's it, and we'll want him to die and he dies. They are, from that word go, setting him up to be a parallel to Daryl, and that makes me think they might have a plan for him that isn't as obvious as it initially seems.
Yeah, that I kind of got that feeling too, like like he wasn't just a clear-cut bad guy. That there was more to him.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in him. I'm interested in I'm interested in finding out more about this Union of Hope.
Yeah.
And if this group that we saw at the end is the CRM, and if the CRM is connected to the Union of Hope somehow.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like everything is going to be somehow connected to the larger universe.
Yeah. I think that's what Scott Gimple's plan always was, wasn't it? That there were going to be these Rick movies, and the Daryl and Carol spin-off originally was going to run alongside the main show, so that was going to continue. So you would have all these stories running parallel that you think would eventually cross paths. Yeah. Presumably in one of the films, the big third film where everybody comes together to fight the CRM or whatever. So it's whether they're still holding on to that as the blueprint, or whether they've decided, no, these are different things. And I think Greg Nicotero, said, this is the show that is closest to standalone. So that is interesting. Yeah. Whether they, it is going to be just on the surface, these people are what they are, and they are not connected to what's going on in America. But, the very fact he came from America to France means there is a connection to America. Somehow he got on that boat. That boat must have been in America for a reason. So why were they, and what were they doing there?
Yeah, definitely. But, it's like, it's a little, it's strange that he would say that knowing what we know.
Yeah.
And do you want to get into that now?
Yep, that's cool. Yes, that's quite fine with me.
All right. Okay, guys, if you don't want any spoilers, now these are confirmed spoilers. It's out there. Many people know about it. If you don't want to be spoiled, then just click off now and we will see you next week. Otherwise, if you want to stick around and get some spoilers, then this is where we're going to talk about them. I don't know that we're going to have stuff to share every week, but if there's information floating around out there that's not, privileged information, then we'll share it with you. So Carol's coming back.
Yay! Hooray! And that's the reason we're here. Yay! Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
We are completely honest that had I not known that Carol was coming back, I would not be invested in this at all.
Yeah, same.
So that is the reason, we know she was seen filming for season 2. in France with Norman Reedus, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan confirmed it. So this is no secret. I believe that AMC want to keep it a secret, and I understand why they do. They want a huge impact for her turning up when she does. But for fans, the fact that they allowed her to be photographed, I think they wanted to give us fans the reassurance, and it's worked because I am now watching a show I wasn't going to watch. So they've done a good job there. So we will be seeing Carol at some point, and that is fantastic. And that, I think, is what ties everything together. Not necessarily the CRM stuff, but the stuff with Daryl, a happy ending, the finding his reason, what he was looking for, what home means, all this stuff is going to be tied to what the fact that Carol is going to come and find him, which is, I mean, it's ridiculously unbelievable. Yes, of course it is. Yeah. But we've already accepted that we're just, going with it because, that's fine. Daryl's crossed the ocean. Of course, Carol can as well. I'm sure it'll make sense when we see it to a degree, whether it's believable or not, but I'm sure they'll explain it. Yeah.
I hope so. Even if it's not, even if I'm rolling my eyes so hard that they fall out the back of my head, I'm just going to be so happy to see Carol. And, and before we get a bunch of comments about, well, like, why are you watching the show if you only care about Carol? No, that's not the case. It's why it's what got us back. It's what got us both back to the show.
Yeah. Carol, I fell in love with Carol season 1. She is my favorite character. Had she left altogether, I would have stopped watching the show. It wasn't, and I have no qualms in saying that. I'm somebody who believes you watch a show to give you entertainment, and you can watch it for one thing only, and that is absolutely fine. If you only watch it because you think Andrew Lincoln is the hottest thing on earth, good for you. Go, carry on. So I have no qualms in saying I'm here because of Carol, and obviously there's more to it than that. You wouldn't just watch, but to be fair, I would probably just watch her read the phone book.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I just honestly I didn't plan on watching this because I was just I was so heartbroken when she was no longer going to be part of the universe. I was just like, well, I didn't enjoy the last season of The Walking Dead.
No.
I didn't enjoy The World Beyond. I didn't enjoy Fear the Walking Dead. I'm just like, I don't really care all that much. There's nothing left that I'm invested in. But when the news came out that she was returning, I was all over it. And I'm hoping that she plays a significant role. If she doesn't, I'll be disappointed. But my whole approach to this podcast and to the show is I want to give it a shot. I didn't plan to watch Dead City. I watched it because I had nothing else to do for a few days, and I actually really enjoyed it. And no, I probably would not be watching this show if Carol was not going to be part of it. But I'm I'm definitely I just want to reassure people that this podcast will not be all about Carol. We're actually covering the show.
No. We are talking. We have spent the first 90 minutes talking about the show, because the way I see it is I have renewed faith in AMC. I had no faith in AMC when Melissa left. The fact that they clearly felt it was important to get her back, and I will give credit to Norman Reedus as well. I believe he was vital in that. He said so from the start. They will come back together. The fact that they understood that Carol was so important gave me renewed faith that I can watch what story you're going to tell, even if Carol isn't in it, because I now know Carol's importance. Yeah. So I have faith that you have a good story to tell. And I'm not saying that every part of this will lead to Carol, or romantic Carol with a Y. But I think it's the original spin-off was going to be about Daryl and Carol. This is something that Greg Nicotero said. It was going to be about them traveling and helping people and seeing what was out there. But I suspect it would also be about their healing their past and all they've gone through and the fact they've gone through it all together. From when Sophia walked out of that barn, Daryl was the one that caught her, and the same with Henry. They have gone through all of this together, and it feels like they need to process that, and that they can process it by going and helping other people. And so I feel like with this story, with Daryl on his own, this is him doing his part on his own. He is trying to deal with everything he has gone through, and being in this country and being involved in a religious group who have such a strong idea of what my life is meant to be and what's going to happen with everybody's life. I think that's a really interesting way to put Daryl when he is in this. I don't know where I am, literally, but I don't know where I am in my life as well. So I think that's a really good place to put him and make him question things. And obviously they're doing what they always did, which was when we have a new character we want people to care about, let's put Daryl with them.
Yes.
Denise and Beth. Let's make the people care about this other character by putting Daryl with them. And in this case, it's worked. But as you and I have both said, even without Daryl, these characters are interesting, and they don't need Daryl to tell the story. This isn't a white savior. They have their own story. Daryl is just, for the moment, part of it.
Yeah. And it's... And the thing is, it's not, and it's nothing to do with Norman Reedus's acting or anything. I've always thought he did a great job as Daryl. But he is a character. Daryl is a character that is at his best when he's with like those that are closest to him,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's not. It's not gonna having Daryl with absolutely zero connections in a show with zero connections to his past. It leaves out the best. I mean, it leaves out everything that we love about Daryl, that we've ever loved about Daryl.
Totally.
He is always a character that has played well off of other people.
Yeah,
and
I think that's why season 11 maybe wasn't quite so good, because putting him in the role as leader, that's not Daryl.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a second in command.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we're really interested in these people, but yeah, I mean, they're standalone characters that we could enjoy in a show without Daryl very easily. Daryl himself needs that history.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
That's where all of the magic in Daryl lies in his history, in his close relationships. I mean, because let's not forget, this is a character who did nothing but stand on screen and flex and grunt for like 3 seasons.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Norman Reedus hated it as much as we had. He complained about that. Yeah.
Completely.
And he does. The character of Daryl does deserve to be more than that, because that was what made him so good, was the Daryl in season 2 who he talked a lot in season 2. He told the Cherokee Rose story, He was a guy who could talk things through, and then he's speaking to Andrea and then telling her, hello, I'm thinking here that is everybody losing their minds land here, whatever it was he said. Why is nobody zen? That was what it was he said. He was talkative, and he was articulate about emotions, and he didn't understand his own emotions, but he was very clear about what he would, he wanted to give Carol hope in finding Sophia. And the someplace that got lost along the way, and with flamethrowers and blowing up stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, I Daryl I absolutely loved Daryl in seasons 1 through 3
Yeah,
and seasons 9 and 10. Like, it
yeah,
just he spoke. I like Daryl when he's talking like a real person and not an action figure.
yes, yeah.
Um So, yeah, it's just, unfortunately, and I like, I kind of feel I can't help but feel a little bad for Reedus because it just I can't think of another character on this show whose writing is just the writing for their character has been so kind of inconsistent and shaky, and
Mm, yeah,
it's just, the writing for his character does not the show doesn't have the greatest history with
no,
writing for his character. Um, and I'm just we saw an amazing Daryl Dixon in seasons 9 and 10, and
mm,
I'm hoping that we see more of that. But you need that. You need the magic of his history
yeah,
with those close to him.
absolutely. I
Um,
mean, some of the reviewers have said the same thing that we have really here, was that he has fine chemistry with Laurent and
yeah,
Isabelle. It's okay.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong in it. But that they felt the whole of Carol. They
yeah,
felt that hole in the show, and it is. It's. I'm not saying this is. There are aspects of it that were better than the Walking Dead main show in that it was original and it was a bit. Yes, a lot of it's to do with the location. It felt fresh. Um, the plot not so original, but the fact we were dealing with a big religion that and a mass religion in the sense of it's all of them, that was interesting. But you felt that Daryl needs that
yeah,
person to connect with. And I guess they're going to, give us that in Laurent. He's going, we know Daryl and Kids is always a ratings winner and a heartstring puller. And if
yeah,
he's going to bond with this kid and maybe as it goes on, it will feel less like, because he will have a close relationship with them. Um,
mm,
but yeah, he needs that person on screen to connect with.
for sure. And if anyone's wondering, I probably should have explained this a while back, but if anyone's wondering, like how we know about Carol, I mean, it's been confirmed by multiple sources. Actually, no, I
Yeah.
think you did say that you
Yeah,
did
I
bring up
said
that
yeah,
Jeffrey Dean
but the
Morgan confirmed
pictures,
it.
yeah, and Jeffrey Dean
Um,
Morgan spoke about it, so it's
yeah, there have been pictures released of them filming together,
yeah,
and it's so yeah, she'll be back for season 2. Um, I'm hoping will she be in season 1? Hoping.
yeah, yeah. The reviewers did seem to suggest she would be, that we would see her. The phrase was multiple cameos, so we
Okay.
should, and obviously we've seen one already because Daryl
Yes.
has that flashback to Carol when he's unconscious. So that's one. So we'll
Yeah.
see how many we've got left.
Yeah, it would be cool, like, if we get, like, some sort of flashback,
Yeah.
that didn't happen on the main show, uh,
Yes.
involving Carol with what happened to Daryl, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Um,
That was
yeah,
what I'm hoping. Either, um, before he's taken or before showing that they were connected or spent time together. If he was going back to, he wasn't just like bye and gone. Was he
yeah,
going back visiting? We don't know. There's no indication how long he has been gone. Uh, not from America, but from the Commonwealth. We don't know
yeah.
how long it is since he left Carol and Judith and RJ, and he was taken. We don't know, and hopefully we'll get some answers of that as we go through the season. Um, there
I'm
is
just
some.
hoping that, I'm hoping that however Carol ends up in France, that dog is with her.
Yes, Dog pilots a plane from America to France. That would be good.
A private jet.
There is something we haven't talked about, which I think if somebody is listening, they maybe would like, why aren't you mentioning this? And that is the Last of Us comparison.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Everybody is going to talk about it because it is a gruff loner guy who is charged with a teenager to take who's special to take them across the country, and it is. Greg Nicotero did say, "Oh well, the show came out. We had already written this. Yeah, but the game has been out for 10 years, so that's not an excuse." I do wish they had come up with something a bit different. I think there are other stories they could have done that involved a child. That's absolutely fine. I understand bringing a child in for Daryl to get close to. It's a shame that it's so. Obviously, no one is saying that Lauren is immune and he's the cure. He's different. He's the Messiah. But there are, going to be a lot of similarities that we will see because of the nature of it's a road story of them traveling. And even, when Isabelle said about the map, oh, we have people. This is the map to where this place is. And we have groups who are friendly, who we know we can visit, which is exactly what happens in The Last of Us. They have groups that they know they can visit. I'm not calling them out on it. I just think it's a shame. It's a shame that they didn't think, okay, let's get completely original here. And it is going to always be compared badly because The Last of Us was extraordinarily good. So you're only going to come off poorly. But it is what it is, and so you have to deal with it. You have to accept that's the plot, and so we're judging it on what we see of it, rather than looking at it and every time just going, yeah, well, this isn't The Last of Us. Because what's the point in doing that? There's no point in, if you're watching a show to be entertained and constantly going, yeah, but,
Yeah.
So, it's a shame, but here we go. It's not The Last of Us. The Last of Us was amazing. It deserves all the awards. But Daryl Dixon is a perfectly serviceable show. And you and I both said, we enjoyed it more than we expected to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I feel like what's interesting is there's a lot of parallels for me with Dead City.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of originality there, but like with Dead City, it was a very predictable storyline, but at the same time, they threw in twists that I never expected. That were really surprising and unique and interesting. And I was really impressed by it. So I'm really hoping for the same for this show.
Yeah. And that's the key. If they get the emotion right and if they take you on the journey enough, it doesn't matter that it's the same plot as something else,
Exactly.
So
I mean,
that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of shows that follow the same formula. Look at how many cop shows there have been that are like practically, or courtroom dramas. It all lies. There's a lot of room for to throw in unique plot points and unpredictable storylines. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's to come. I'm trying to not have a one-track mind and just keep thinking, okay, how many more days till we see Carol again?
yeah, exactly.
So I could just enjoy this show.
Yeah. There's something to be said for spoilers. I understand why companies don't want any spoilers whatsoever, but I think in a way it can help you because, for example, just not in this case, but I'll just say like the X-Files. When I used to watch the X-Files, if I knew in advance Like, Mulder and Scully are not going to get together in this episode. They're not going to make out. They're not going to, declare their love for each other. In a way, that helps me focus more on the story. So I could go, okay, I know that's not happening yet. I will enjoy this for what it is. Instead of constantly thinking, are they going to kiss? Are they going to kiss? And I think in this series, it's a bit the same. We know that Carol will turn up eventually, which allows us to be able to say, okay, let's enjoy the story for what it's doing, instead of thinking, is Carol going to show up? Is Carol going to show up? I think it helps to focus on now, because I'm like, it's okay, that's coming, I can wait. I'll let you entertain me in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does give you, like, some, it allows you to enjoy what's in front of you for sure.
Yeah.
But I just hope she gets some fun stuff to do, and some good material, and I'm just, we never really did, we didn't get a good resolution with her character on the show. It wasn't satisfying.
No. I think it was clear what, as I said, the original plan was that they were going to leave and come back. And I think it was clear that season 10 was setting up for that when we got the talk of New Mexico and things. And then they had to backpedal because the main show was cancelled and, whatever. And in doing that, they stalled on the resolution of the big fight that Daryl and Carol had at the end of season 10. It was never resolved. It was just kind of, we're speaking now and, we still care about each other. So that was never resolved. They've never had a sit-down conversation about, okay, and I'm not talking about a romantic conversation of declaring their love. I mean, just a conversation of what we've been through together and what it's done to us and how we feel about each other. Again, I'm not talking in a romantic way, but in terms of, you were there for me, or you let me down at this point, or I expected this, or I feel this about, when that happened, I wish this had happened, whatever. But just to talk through everything. And as you say, so Carol didn't get that resolution.
No.
So let's hope this is going to give her the chance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we never really saw her get peace. No. From that. I mean, he was the closest person to her, and I mean, it was they were that duo has the most history on the show, and there was so much. She had so much inner turmoil because their relationship was so fractured, and to see that not get resolved when it's such an important part of the show is really frustrating. We don't want to see everything just be happy again. We want to see, like, which is essentially what we got. And then, but sometimes it wasn't so happy, but like, they just never talked about anything. So I'm hoping that when she shows up on the show, we'll see them kind of be open and honest with each other and fix anything that needs to be fixed.
And I agree.
We're not left in this state wondering, like, what the hell is going on with them, and is Carol still torturing herself because, like, she thinks that Daryl resents her,
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. And there's something interesting about Carol, which just came to me here. Carol has a strong connection to Catholicism, to religion. Yeah. That was a huge part of her story, when she had the rosary beads in season 6. So if she becomes involved in this religious story and Laurent, that is really interesting. If you add Carol into a story that this kid is the Messiah and they have to look after him, things, that is really interesting, knowing everything she has gone through with children in her care. And is she willing to do that again? Is she willing to get involved in a child's life? And what does she feel about God now? We know she certainly wasn't thrilled with God after Sophia died. So has she still? And a lot of her issues were with guilt. And there was that scene in when she was staying in the house outside the kingdom where she wrote down a list of all the names of people she'd killed. She has huge personal guilt. this is possible a healing for her. If there's this kid who's the new Messiah, and he's like, no, you're cool, you did what you have to do. I love stuff about fate and destiny. Love it. And if this is going to be about Daryl and Carol individually or together, their fate and destiny, then I am here for that, definitely. Even if it's coming via a small child with adorable hair. I'm sorry, I can't stop talking about his hair. He has the best hair.
I know he does. It's so funny though, like when Isabelle showed Daryl that picture, and basically saying, "Look, it's you." I'm like, that could just as well be himself too.
Yes. Laurent goes to the beach.
It's not exactly Picasso.
No.
Like Daryl said,
it's entirely clear.
Math.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm interested to see if it will tie into anything else. Did we hear? Is there a rumor? I thought I saw a rumor that there was a season 3 planned and that it might be in America.
Yeah, that has been. Yeah, there was an article which said they were going to do some filming in Ireland at one point. So it's never been confirmed or seen it again. But I could definitely see if season 3 that is in America, then it becomes a question of, are they bringing Laurent back to America, or not? Is that going to just be a 2-season arc, or and are we going to then get into what Greg Nicotero described as the Daryl and Carol going place to place? I mean, they could make that the season, them getting from France back to America, going to different countries, and encountering their own cultures and things, and how they're dealing with stuff, and as they slowly get home, with or without Laurent. He might have saved the world by then, and it brought everybody back to life, and it's just a normal show. It's no longer The Walking Dead. It just becomes Ellie Law or something. Ellie Law, wow. That was an old reference, Don.
By the way, yes, this is a Cherokee Rose necklace.
Very good.
That I'm wearing in anticipation of Carol's return. I made it myself.
Oh, fabulous.
But it's it'll be interesting to see if if it ties into the larger universe, like what characters might be reunited with each other.
Yeah.
Are there going to be more spin-offs? I mean,
there's rumor of an Aaron spin-off, as I heard last week.
I'm all over that.
Yeah.
I'm all over that. I mean, other than a Lance Hornsby prequel, pre-Commonwealth prequel, Aaron would be my my number one choice for the next spin-off.
And I mean, if we have to think about the schedule that AMC are doing, Daryl Dixon obviously is on now, and the Rick and Michonne show called The Ones Who Live, I believe is coming in the spring. So Daryl Dixon season 2, one presumes, will be after that. So we will have seen what's happened with Rick and Michonne by then. Okay. And it's possible that Carol will have seen what happens with Rick and Michonne by season 2. So she might have information about Rick and Michonne, and have crossed paths with them, which could lead into another story for Daryl. If she comes and says, hey, Rick is in wherever, and they need our help, and we're going to go there. That could be why, season 3 in America. Who knows?
Yeah. It would be nice to know the timeline, because I mean, Dead City is I don't know how far ahead they are, but I mean, Herschel's a teen. Herschel's a teenager.
Yeah.
They have a different kid playing him, and so they're quite they've had quite a bit of a time jump.
Mm,
But yeah, so we have no idea what kind of timeline they're in right now. So it
yeah.
would
I don't know what the Rick and Michonne, how, obviously we saw Michonne leave middle of season 10, but
yeah
we don't know when the little scene that was at the end of the main season with Michonne on a horse and Rick writing in his whatever he was writing. We don't know when that takes place in actual time. Um, so
yeah
by the time we see them, are we going to be in the same timeline with them, or is it going to be the past, or are they going to be in line with Dead City? Who knows? Um, and that is all going to be relevant in terms of the plot and the overarching connection to everything. So we'll have to wait and see.
yeah for sure. Um, just so you guys know, so Dawn will be joining me every week as my co-host.
Hurrah!
But yeah, we will be having a Sunday night after show. We didn't do this for the first episode, but my co-host from the Antler Queens and Cruel Summer Camp and the upcoming A-Hole Queens is going to be my co-host for the after show. So Sunday nights, make sure you turn into. It's only going to be on YouTube, not on the audio podcast. But make sure you check us out Sunday nights immediately following new episodes of Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. You can chat live with us. You can even pop on screen and voice your thoughts that way if you're feeling bold enough. And I don't know, John. When Carol, the episode that Carol comes back for, I may need to
Yeah,
wake you up and
yeah. I
force
think
you to
yeah
join us.
will be clear. That is the reason why I am not contributing to these after
Yes,
episodes, because I will be asleep. It will be
yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning. I say I will be asleep. Chances are I probably won't, but I won't be. I won't be fit to be on camera. But yeah, when Carol comes back, we will know, because the episodes drop early on the AMC app, so we will know, and I will be there, whatever time of day or night it is, to
Awesome.
scream hysterically.
Awesome. We'll have to we'll have to pop some champagne.
Yeah, I'll maybe have a breakfast tea.
Yeah. That's a really weird time for you to be popping champagne.
Yeah.
Um, but so did you have any other thoughts to share before we cut out?
I cannot think of. Oh, there was something I wanted to say
Yeah.
about the subtitles, and I cannot take credit for this. I read this on Twitter, and I'm very sorry I can't remember the person's name, but what a brilliant point they made, because I thought this as I started watching it. I watched a version with subtitles. I always watch with subtitles anyway.
Yeah.
But when the soldiers come and attack Maribel and Daryl and things, there was no subtitles. For it just said speaks French. And however, when we see Isabelle speaking to the other nuns, there is French subtitles. And this person pointed out, when Daryl is in a scene, we don't get French subtitles because they want us to feel like Daryl and not know what they're saying. And I thought that is so clever. But
Yeah.
when Daryl's not involved, we can understand what they're saying. It never even occurred to me that was why it was. Genius. So well
Yeah.
done to them for doing that. Great little trick to make the audience feel as disorientated as Daryl.
It
So
adds
well
to the
done.
suspense too,
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
It also makes me think that, maybe Isabelle is not as maybe her motivations aren't all
yeah,
that pure, and there's going to be some double dealing going on.
yeah. I think definitely the whole thing with the radio certainly has given us a hint. And when he went back to it, and she said, "Oh, it had been broken for months." Um,
Yeah.
so either she lied when she said she'd spoken to somebody, or she was lying there. Either way, she was manipulating him to not use that radio. So the question is, how much is she willing to manipulate him? And is her reason purely selfless because she believes it's for Lauren's best, or is there another motive? And that is certainly something that I'm interested in finding out.
I'm leaning toward there is. I think I don't think we're gonna find out that she's totally evil, but I think we're gonna find out that she's a little shady.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Daryl is not entirely safe with her.
No.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, again, I apologize for quoting Greg Nicotero so much, but he did give a good interview recently. He said that Daryl gets into a pickle and might need saving. So, whether Isabelle is also in the pickle or whether she is the cause of it, who knows? So that is certainly, something of interest.
I mean, yeah, for sure. But I'm already formulating theories in my head about, what's connected to what. So it's, we've only got 6 weeks, so it's very digestible.
Yeah,
and
good. Yeah.
So join us, not Dawn, but join myself and Pamela on next Sunday night, immediately following the episode. Again, that's live. You can chat with us live. And then Dawn, you can catch Dawn and me every week. We'll be dropping our weekly recaps. I hope you enjoyed our first episode recap of the Daryl Dixon podcast. And we will see you guys soon.
Thank you.